When you think about power, you usually picture something like a fortress, like something impossibly solid, thick stone walls, a loyal army stationed at the gates, and, the person inside just pulling all the levers.
Right. It's that classic, almost architectural view of control. We want to believe that if we could just secure the perimeter, well, we can control our entire reality.
Exactly. You convince yourself that if you just build those walls high enough, you're totally untouchable. But then you look at a city like New York and suddenly you realize the walls are completely fake.
They're paper thin.
Yeah, and the person pulling the levers, they might literally just be sitting on a fault line without even knowing it. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack Season 2, Episode 4 of Daredevil, Born Again.
And it's aptly titled Gloves Off.
It is, yeah. And we are pulling from a massive stack of source material today. We've got frame-by-frame analyses, some really deep lore essays, and some incredibly passionate, heavily debated community threads.
Oh, the community's reacting so strongly right now. And I think it's because this specific hour of television just dismantled everything we thought we knew about the power dynamics in this city.
I mean, completely upended it.
Yeah, like superhero shows generally anchor themselves in physical battles, right? The martial arts, the choreography.
Mm-hmm.
But the underlying current of all the material we're exploring today is really the absolute illusion of control.
For sure.
It exposes how even the most powerful people in New York, the ones who style themselves as like apex predators, are unwittingly just acting as pawns in a much more dangerous ecosystem.
Okay, let's unpack this because the episode doesn't actually start with the global power players. It starts by dropping us into this chillingly quiet, intimate space with Benjamin Poindexter.
Bullseye.
Which is such a brilliant choice.
It really is. And the way they reintroduce him is brilliantly unsettling because it completely subverts what we expect from a villain's lair. We see this meticulous morning routine.
Oh, the routine is fascinating. Right. He's going by the alias Tony, which, by the way, feels like a deeply cynical nod to Tony Stark's billionaire playboy persona, and he's just living this rigidly regimented life. He cooks a perfectly portioned breakfast, feeds a neighbor's dog, and interacts with his landlord.
And the landlord just sees a quiet, polite guy paying his rent. He has no idea.
Exactly. But that routine, it serves a really vital psychological purpose, doesn't it?
It totally does. If you look at the visual language of the series, this is a very deliberate echo of the elaborate morning routines we've watched Kingpin and Matt Murdock perform in previous seasons.
Right, like Matt's coffee ritual.
Exactly. Matt uses his routine to center his sensory overload. Fisk uses his to project this image of refinement over his underlying rage. But Poindexter's routine is pure mimicry.
He's just faking it.
Yeah, he's a psychopath wearing normalcy like a costume. He isn't centered at all. He's spending every waking second of this quiet, domestic life running these endless tactical simulations in his head.
Just visualizing 1,000 different ways to slaughter the anti-vigilante task force.
Precisely.
It is deeply unnerving. And the show kind of leans entirely into the internet meme culture surrounding these over-the-top routines, but it weaponizes it, which brings us to the Bel Air diner scene.
Oh, the diner scene? Incredible.
He walks in, orders a banana milkshake, which is another amazing fan favorite callback, and then he casually calls in a fake tip claiming the Punisher is having breakfast there.
Right. Strictly to lure the task force into a confined space.
Yeah. And what follows isn't just an action sequence, it's a masterclass in calculated environmental violence.
It really is. Because when the heavily armed task force arrives, Poindexter doesn't even draw a firearm. He doesn't need to. He simply puts on a pair of plain surgical gloves just to avoid leaving fingerprints.
I was actually reading through the community reactions, and someone made an analogy that I just can't stop thinking about. They compared Bullseye in that diner kitchen to an anime character expanding their lethal domain.
Oh, like in Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yes, exactly, like a domain expansion. He literally turns an ordinary greasy spoon diner into this lethal Rube Goldberg machine. He doesn't fight them so much as he, processes them.
Processing them is the perfect way to put it. His true superpower isn't just accuracy. It's the spontaneous weaponization of the mundane.
Yeah, anything is a weapon.
Right, and the cinematography focuses heavily on the mechanics of this. We see him use a cherry pit, shot through a plastic drinking straw with the velocity of a blow dart, to execute his first target.
A cherry pit. It's insane.
It highlights a terrifying reality. You cannot disarm a man who views a piece of fruit as lethal ordnance. and leaving that bullseye symbol drawn in ketchup on the door.
That was wild.
That is pure theatrical terrorism. He's making a very public declaration that the system cannot even protect its own enforcers.
I have to mention, though, the community was hilariously divided on the finer details of this scene. Half the viewers were, writing literal essays on the sociological implications of the ketchup symbol.
And the other half?
The other half were entirely distracted by the fact that there were live lobsters in the diner's tank. Who is ordering fresh lobster at a New Jersey-style diner at 8 in the morning?
I mean, that's a completely fair, if slightly tangential observation from the audience. But I think the more pressing debate surrounding Bullseye is his stated motivation.
Oh, right. The redemption thing.
Yeah. Later on, he claims this is all in pursuit of redemption. He rationalizes that by killing Mayor Fisk, he's doing a, quote, good deed to balance the scales for what he did to Foggy Nelson.
Yeah, I really have to push back on that logic. And a lot of the community felt the exact same way. Can we actually call it a redemption arc if his version of a good deed requires taking an innocent elderly neighbor hostage and massacring a room full of police officers?
Doesn't sound very redemptive.
Right. It feels far less like genuine remorse and more like he simply found a socially acceptable target to justify his pure sadism.
That is the core of his pathology right there. He is rationalizing a violent compulsion, but, his sheer dominance in that diner serves a massive narrative function.
How so?
It exposes a fatal vulnerability in Mayor Fisk's armor. Because if a single man with a plastic straw can wipe out Fisk's elite police unit, Fisk's grip on the city is incredibly fragile.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that weakness is exactly why his mysterious new backers are starting to view him as a liability.
Oh, man. This was the moment my jaw actually dropped. We get that scene in Fisk's office with his enforcer, Buck Cashman, and this new liaison named Mr. Charles.
Yes.
And Mr. Charles doesn't just disagree with Fisk, he completely belittles him. He calls the mayor of New York small potatoes.
Right to his face.
Kingpin is a man who is biologically accustomed to being the most terrifying person in any room. But in this scene, he suddenly looks like a middle manager who thought he was the CEO, only to realize he's just running a local franchise for a massive global black ops corporation.
That is spot on. If we connect this to the broader architecture of the MCU, it completely reframes the street-level stakes.
Yeah, the scope just zooms way out.
Exactly. The illegal weapons sitting in containers at the Brooklyn port, the ones unloaded from the Northern Starship, they're not meant for local gang warfare. They're being trafficked by the director of the CIA, Val.
Right, Val.
And they're bound for Guinea-Bissau in West Africa.
Okay, wait. I need to admit some confusion here. I was reading the sources and I'm still stuck on this. Why Guinea-Bissau? What does the CIA gain from moving weapons through a local New York port to start a conflict in West Africa?
It is all about plausible deniability.
Okay.
In the geopolitical shadows, if the CIA uses official military channels to arm a faction and destabilize a foreign government, it invites international sanctions and oversight.
A huge paper trail.
Exactly. But if those weapons are smuggled through a corrupt local port operated by a notoriously dirty mayor, it just looks like standard organized crime. Val is using Fisk's criminal infrastructure to fund shadow wars.
Wow. Which perfectly answers the massive elephant in the room question that always plagues these street-level stories, where are the Avengers?
Right. Everyone always asks that.
I kept waiting for a superhero to drop from the sky and shut down a weapons smuggling ring operating right in the middle of Manhattan. It made no sense to me why they were ignoring it.
Well, if you look closely at the skyline during the exterior transitions, there is a massive visual clue.
The tower, right?
Yes, the A on the tower is different. Val literally bought Avengers Tower. It is now the base of operations for the Thunderbolts and her new Avengers.
That is wild.
The reason nobody with a cape is swooping in to stop the Northern Star shipments is because their boss, the director of the CIA, is the one organizing the shipments. She gave the stand-down order.
That jurisdictional irony is just brutal. I mean, Fisk is obsessing over mayoral decrees and local zoning laws, thinking he's building this timeless empire. Meanwhile, he's unwittingly acting as a disposable shipping hub for a shadow government.
It highlights a profound lack of awareness on Fisk's part. He just cannot comprehend a game board larger than his own city.
So if the federal government is running the corruption and psychopathic marksmen are tearing up the streets, how do you even begin to mount a resistance? Good stuff.
Because the community analysis shows our heroes are deeply fractured on how to actually fight this war.
They really are. They're fighting a multi-front war with completely incompatible tactics. Take Karen Page, for example.
Right, her legal approach.
She is committed to the agonizingly slow bureaucratic route. She is painstakingly gathering testimonials from incarcerated individuals like Soledad, and most importantly, Christofi, the surviving captain of the Northern Star.
Yeah, she needs to build an airtight paper trail to prove Fisk personally authorized those illegal shipments. But relying on a paper trail against a man who uses brute force just feels hopelessly mismatched, you know? It's like trying to take down Al Capone on tax evasion while he's actively firing a Tommy gun in your direction.
That's a great analogy.
It might be the correct legal maneuver, but it feels completely useless when you're actively in a firefight.
Yeah.
Which is why Matt Murdock is trying to build a physical resistance, but he's hitting brick walls left and right.
He really is. He goes to Jack Duquesne, the swordsman, hoping to recruit a fighter. And Jack flatly refuses to throw a punch, basically saying, "I'm just here to write a check."
That moment is such a brilliant, albeit cynical, meta-nod to the actor's contract.
Yeah.
He is strictly there for a cameo.
That was hilarious.
But narratively, it isolates Matt. Jack tells Daredevil that he isn't just a fighter anymore. He has become a symbol, and symbols need to delegate.
Which leads to the introduction of Angela Del Toro. She officially embraces the white tiger mantle in this episode, accepting the amulet.
Yes.
I know she uses her street network to help move Karen's evidence around, but for those who aren't super deep into the comic lore, what exactly is the amulet doing for the Resistance?
So the White Tiger Amulet is a mystical artifact rooted in the Jade Tiger mythology. It grants the wearer enhanced martial arts abilities, speed, and endurance.
Okay, so it makes her a powerhouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But strategically, handing off that power is crucial. Daredevil cannot be everywhere at once. By empowering Angela, he's decentralizing the Resistance. He's ensuring that even if he falls, the concept of a protector remains active on the streets.
And he needs that help, because his detective work to find Bullseye takes absolutely everything he has. Matt uses a single coin from Our Lady of Grace Church and the acoustic resonance of distant bells to triangulate Bullseye's apartment.
It is classic hypersensory Daredevil.
So good. And the apartment fight that follows is visually spectacular.
The choreography teams really outdid themselves there. During the climax of that fight, they execute what animation historians call the double anime punch.
Oh, I love the lineage of that specific punch.
It's iconic. It's a sequence where both fighters cross their arms and strike each other squarely in the jaw simultaneously.
Yeah, it's a direct frame-for-frame homage to a 1971 boxing anime called Ashita no Jo. It's this legendary, desperate move that we've seen copied in Rocky III, Dragon Ball Z, and even by Michael B. Jordan in Creed II.
It physically represents two unstoppable forces colliding with zero defense.
Totally. But the fight concludes with a standoff that absolutely ignited the community forums. Bullseye states his intention to kill Fisk and balance the scales, and Matt stops him. Matt actively disarms Bullseye to save the Kingpin's life, claiming he refuses to let Fisk become a martyr.
And this brings us to the absolute core of Daredevil's philosophical struggle: deontology versus utilitarianism.
Let's really explore that, because the fans were furious.
They were.
They were arguing that if Matt continually swoops in to save Fisk from assassins, he essentially becomes morally complicit in Fisk's ongoing crimes. Kingpin has an entire task force executing citizens. He's facilitating a shadow war in West Africa.
Right.
If Matt's strict no-kill rule is the literal shield keeping Fisk alive, isn't Daredevil's personal morality costing the city hundreds of lives?
It is essentially the trolley problem scaled up to a metropolitan level. Matt operates strictly on deontology, the ethical framework that an action itself must be inherently right or wrong, regardless of the consequences. For Matt, murder is universally wrong.
Always.
He believes that if he kills the corrupt mayor, or even allows him to be killed, he validates Fisk's entire worldview. That ultimate power only flows from violence. You turn Fisk into a martyr for the law and order extremists.
But the utilitarian counter-argument, the idea that you should act to maximize the overall good for the greatest number of people, is exactly why the audience is so frustrated.
It's hard to watch.
The burden of Matt's pure soul is basically paid for with the blood of the people Fisk continues to victimize. It feels like this philosophical luxury Matt affords himself while the working class of New York suffers the physical consequences.
It is an agonizing contradiction, and all of these volatile elements Karen's fragile legal maneuvers, Matt's rigid morality, Fisk's desperate need for control, and Bullseye's pure, unpredictable chaos, they're forced into a single confined space for the episode's climax.
Fogwell's gym. Fisk is hosting a highly publicized charity boxing match against a professional fighter named Matterhorn. And setting this in a boxing ring is such a profound metaphor for the illusion of control. A boxing match is a fight, sure, but it's civilized. It's bound by rules, a referee, padded gloves, and a bell. It's violence contained.
But Fisk shatters that containment immediately.
He
explicitly refuses to wear a mouthguard. He wants to taste his own blood. He wants to feel the bone-jarring reality of the damage. And he just proceeds to savagely brutalize his opponent.
It's brutal to watch.
It strips away the veneer. It proves to the audience that his entire New York born-again mayoral campaign is nothing but a polished PR facade meant to legitimize the monster hiding underneath.
And while Fisk is in the ring indulging his ego, his meticulously crafted empire is quietly being dismantled outside. But Cashman, following Fisk's earlier paranoid orders to tie up loose ends, intercepts a U.S. Marshals transport and executes Krasoffi, the star witness.
That single gunshot kills Karen Page's legal route.
Yeah, the paper trail just lost his voice.
But strategically, it leaves Fisk entirely exposed. Because Buck is off committing murder, he is not at the gym protecting his boss.
Which is when we have to look at the chilling foreshadowing from earlier in the episode. Vanessa has this tense conversation with the governor. A lot of viewers felt the dialogue was a bit heavy-handed, but the thematic weight is undeniable.
Right.
The governor compares Vanessa to Europa.
In Greek mythology, Europa was a mortal woman swept up by Zeus, drawn into the intoxicating, dangerous world of the divine. But ultimately, she became tragic collateral damage to the wars of the gods.
It is a bleak prophetic warning.
And that prophecy fulfills itself violently. Bullseye infiltrates the gym.
And he doesn't even bring a gun.
No, he slaughters the remaining security detail using a born-again crystal statuette, literally turning the physical symbol of Fisk's political campaign into a murder weapon. And then we arrive at the twist.
The big one.
The defining cinematic moment of the entire season.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if you watch it in real time, it's just a blur of panic. Vanessa, who Fisk explicitly begged to stay away from the event, is standing ringside. She draws a concealed weapon and shoots Bullseye, severely wounding him and basically saving her husband's life.
Yes.
But Bullseye has already launched a projectile toward her. Fisk's instincts kick in. He raises his heavy metal championship boxing belt to shield her. The projectile hits the belt. Well, it hits the belt and shatters.
Right.
A deflected shard of metal ricochets and strikes Vanessa in the head, killing her instantly.
The physical physics of the moment are just devastating.
But when you slow the footage down, frame by frame, you realize something excruciating.
The community caught this right away.
They did. Bullseye's original throw was off balance because he was shot. The projectile was going to miss her, or at the very least, it would not have been a fatal headshot. It was Fisk's defensive block that altered the trajectory.
It's so dark.
By raising that belt, Kingpin's own instinctual action technically delivered the killing blow to his own wife.
The psychological compartmentalization that is going to follow this will be catastrophic. Fisk is a man whose entire identity is predicated on control.
Exactly.
To accept the reality that his own action wielding his own trophy of violence is what murdered the only person he genuinely loved, his psyche will violently reject that truth.
He will completely break.
He'll blame Daredevil for disarming Bullseye earlier and letting him live. He'll blame Bullseye for throwing the weapon. He'll blame the security detail for failing. The episode title, Gloves Off, takes on a horrifying double meaning here.
It really does.
Vanessa was the emotional buffer. She was the only human being capable of grounding his darkest impulses. Without her, and fueled by a massive, unplaceable sense of guilt, the Kingpin is going to wage an unrestricted, irrational war on the entire city.
The teasers for the rest of the season suggest exactly that. The stakes have escalated beyond anything we've seen. We're getting heavy hints that the Defenders, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, are going to be forced back into the fray simply to deal with the radioactive fallout of this single moment in the ring.
It is no longer just a battle for the soul of Hell's Kitchen. It is an all-hands-on-deck scenario to prevent the total collapse of New York.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? Like, why does an hour of fictional geopolitical superhero drama resonate so deeply?
It's a great question.
I think this narrative is a masterclass in the absolute fragility of systemic power. You can rig the judicial system, you can leverage the ports, you can quite literally facilitate black ops for the CIA, hire private armies, and build a fortress of influence.
But chaotic variables, like a deeply damaged man with a personal vendetta and a sharp object, can shatter your entire world in a fraction of a second.
Yeah, the tighter you squeeze your fist to control your environment, the more violently it slips through your fingers.
It returns us directly to the illusion we discussed at the very beginning. You cannot command the tide. You can only build a sandcastle and delude yourself into thinking the walls will hold.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. It's something the general discourse has mostly glossed over, but it completely reframes the tragedy.
Oh, what is it?
The show consistently frames Vanessa as Kingpin's moral anchor, right? The one stabilizing force keeping the monster somewhat in check. But if we look at the objective facts of their history, she actively encouraged his rise to power.
Shit.
She curated the immaculate suits he wore to order executions. And in that final chaotic moment, she's the one who introduced a firearm into the room, escalating the fight and prompting the lethal throw.
That is a very valid point.
So, was Vanessa actually his moral anchor? Or, by willingly enabling and participating in his violent ecosystem, was she the very architect of the tragedy that just destroyed them both? Something to mull over until next time.